my story kind of goes, they put me in the mile. I loved running the mile, but when they saw that I was a decent distance runner, they put me in the 2 mile, and I didn't like the 2 mile. Too many laps. I'd rather just stick to the mile, and it kind of ruined my love for running.
Tom did not come out his freshman year. He didn't come out for cross country. He wanted to focus on his academics.
I had calls from the coach. Randy Johnson was a new coach at the time, so I politely declined, and I played basketball as a freshman. I also played tennis. It was the first time I'd ever picked up a racket, and I loved the game, but I lost about every game I played, but I still loved it. One day he called and he said, "I'll make you a deal. You come out for practice once, and I'll stop calling. If you like it, you join the team. If not, you won't hear from me again." And I thought that sounded like a pretty good deal, because I didn't like having to decline every time he called me. And I went out to practice, and we ran at Hoffmaster as a team, and I loved it, and so that was the beginning of my running career.
He came out his sophomore year, and in his very first race ran 21 minutes, which is, Mr. Joe average. Okay, I got a kid out, he's supposed to be great, he runs 20 minutes. Well, he'll get better as he gets older. Well, race number 2 comes around. He runs about 19 minutes. Wow, that's a pretty good improvement. 19 minutes is, a sophomore. It's okay, it's nothing fantastic, but, it's a big improvement. Well, the next race, Mike Cranmer, my all-stater, he can't run, he has an injury, so he's out. We're against Orchard View, and Orchard View has a guy who was all-state. So we take off running, and Tom decides to latch onto the number 1 guy. And it was just an amazing race. These two are duking it out neck and neck the whole race. Comes down to the finish, and Tom out sprints him, runs a 17 flat, his 3rd race. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this kid's amazing. Not only did he win the race, but he beats his kid who was all-state from Orchard View.
I went on my sophomore year to place 3rd at our regional meet that year, and I beat Mike Kramer, who was the number 1 guy on our team. And to me, that was just amazing. I mean, I was kind of out with a mission on that day, and qualified for state finals. And Mike and I both went to the state finals and did very well, placed 4th and 6th and got all-state honors. After making all-state honors as a sophomore in cross country, when track season rolled around, I actually went out for the tennis team again, because I did not want to run the 2 mile on the track. For some reason, doing loop after loop on the track just did not appeal to me. And I remember Coach Grossa at the time. He came up to me and he said, "Tommy, you did pretty well in cross country, and I think maybe you should go run track." And I think he was trying to be nice and not tell me that I sucked at tennis, but I was really no good at tennis. I was a very sick kid. Growing up, I'd always been sick. I know that during most of my senior year, I felt like I had this chronic bronchitis that was always coming back, and that was inhibiting my training and my racing. So I don't feel like I was running to my full potential. My senior year, outdoor track, the track season, 3,200 meters I had qualified for, and I'd already run the 4x8 with our team that had qualified earlier in the day. And I was feeling very sick, very run down. I'd been sick for the couple months leading up to it, and I told my dad before the race I didn't think I could finish. I just remember telling him, it's like, I just don't feel like I can finish. And he said, "Well, get out there, start the race and just see what you can do." That's all he said. And I said, "Sounds good. I'll get out there and see what I can do." And I remember hanging back in the race, not making any aggressive moves, but it got to a point where 3 laps to go, 2 laps to go, I'm like, that leader's not too far in front of me.
He's so far behind. We think, his senior year, poor kid. We just really wanted him to, finish on the right move, and he's way back there again, and it was like deja vu all over again. He starts passing people, and the last lap he blows by everybody and ends up winning it again.
Didn't stop when I hit the lap to go. I just kept on moving, and I moved right into the lead and ran away from everybody. It was pretty exciting. I actually went on later after the state championships to run this race called the Foot Locker Cross Country, the Midwest Regional. I got 97th place. And so that was a really big eye-opener to me that, I just won a state championship title, but I just went and got hammered by 96 other people. I knew that I had something to prove. Like to me, the 97th place didn't sit very well. And so I trained really hard in the summer. To me, really hard meant 45, 50 miles a week. And my senior year, I remember breezing through cross country. I think I was undefeated. I was mainly out to set course records.
He would always go up to the race director and ask them what their course record was. Everybody thought he was so cocky and arrogant. It was just the way he motivated himself to run. People thought that, they didn't like him because he's so arrogant. He always thinks he's this greatest runner. Well, when you go ask the course record and you go beat it, I guess there's something to you.
So when I quit basketball, went through my senior year, I remember telling Coach Johnson at cross-country state finals that I was going to hang back for about the first 2 miles, and then I was going to run a big last mile to try to go win again.
Cross-country really came fluently for him. His senior year in cross, he was the #1 guy. He was so far ahead of the field his senior year, and it was muddy, it was rainy, it was terrible weather. And here's this little kid going off the path of the cross-country course just to hit a mud puddle. He's splashing through the mud puddle, looking at the crowd, laughing and going on. He was having a great time his senior year, and he was so far ahead of everybody. They was just able to cruise to a victory.
I went on to Midwest Regionals for Foot Locker that year, and big race, 500 guys on the line. One of the toughest courses I've ever run, and I ended up rolling down this hill, about 600-700 meters to go, rolling down a hill in the woods, and then it opens up into this big field where the finish line is. And in the last mile of the race, people are sitting on the side of the course counting, and so I hear, "Billy, you're 12th place," and I'm like, okay, if that's Billy, then that's 13th, 14th. Okay, I'm in 15th place, and they only took top 8, and so I'm counting down, and I'm running as fast as I could, counting down. Okay, now I'm in 14th, now I'm in 13th, now I'm in 12th, and that late in a race, when you pass somebody, a lot of times they don't have the energy to give you a fight. I break out into this field for the finish, and I can see the finish line way up there, 300 or 400 meters away. And there's a group of guys right in front of me. And at some point, again, I thought I was good at math. I kind of lost count, and I didn't know where I was, but I was just gutting it out to the finish. And I leaned through the line, and I'm looking up. I'm like standing tall. I'm looking up. I'm trying to count the guys that are in the finish line shooting in front of me. I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I was like 7. I was 7, and I was jumping up. I was so excited. And every other guy in the chute was sitting there on his knees and all tired, and it was just so funny. I was so excited. It was a blast. And
he finishes up either 6th or 7th, and now I'm panicking. What do I do? This is the first time I've ever had a kid qualify for a national meet. I don't know what to do. So they put us in this little tent, and we're sitting there. I'm acting like I know what I'm doing, but I have no idea what I'm doing. So we're just, it was a fun time. He gave me a lot of firsts in running.
So when I went to Indiana University, I didn't even know what the 3,000 meter steeplechase was. In fact, in the summer before my freshman year, I think I saw it on TV at the World Championships. So I'm watching this race, and I'm seeing these guys jump over barriers, and yet they're running 3,000 meters. And there's a water pit after one of the barriers, and I thought, wow, it's like, that's my event. And I knew just watching it.
Yeah, well, the steeplechase probably is one of the most unique events, not only in track and field, but in all of sports. And it takes someone who is very tactical and is going to have a strategy and know pretty much every step they're going to take in the entire race, because here you are running a race, and all of a sudden there's a water pit, and there's a big hurdles like you'd see almost a different time, and you have to be it's more of a mental challenge almost than a physical challenge, and that's why it was a perfect fit for Tom, is because he was so analytical about himself as a runner, and he would come into a race and know exactly what he had to do, and that served him well in the steeplechase.
My senior year, I was 8th place at the NCAA finals, but 2 weeks later I went on to the US Championships, and I was the top collegiate finisher at the US Championships, and I was 8th. So when I graduated, going into the year 2000, I was ranked in the top 10 in the nation. and it was pretty cool to put a number on myself. At one point, I was feeling really good. I had my Nike uniform on, I had my Cliff Bar, temporary tattoos on my shoulder, and I moved from about 6th place up into 3rd place, and top 3 make the Olympic team. And I moved into 3rd, and all I saw was this stretch of track. It was about 30 yards between me and the top 2 runners. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna come around, I'm gonna have 2 laps to go, I'm feeling really good. And I come around the water jump, come through the home stretch, and all of a sudden I see 3 laps to go. And I was mistaken. I thought, there's no way. It's like 3 laps? Was I wrong? Was it 2 laps? And turns out I had kind of made a little bit of a mistake, and more than anything, I just panicked. And I thought, oh, I've got 3 laps to go. I thought I had 2. I kind of tightened up a little bit and tensed up, and it just kind of ruined my race. A couple people passed me when there were 2 laps to go. I hung on as much as I could. Ultimately, it was only 8 seconds away from making the Olympic team, and it was so disappointing. I mean, I remember breaking down and crying, I think when I saw my parents after the race. It was just something I really wanted so much of. I did make the NACAC team. It's the North American, Central American, and Caribbean nations, and I made the steeplechase team there, and that was my first USA uniform that I got to wear. That was amazing. They were the 1996 Olympic uniforms, and so I had USA on my chest, and I remember warming up in the USA gear, and we're surrounded by athletes that don't speak English, and I mean, it was really cool.
I guess my biggest memory of Tom Chorny was in 2001 when he really shocked the nation and won the U.S. national title in the steeplechase. If that would have been an Olympic year, Tom Chorny would have been on the U.S. Olympic team.
Coming into the last lap, I was sitting in 3rd place. I don't remember much of the race. We came around 200 to go, and there's 5 barriers every lap, so there's still 3 jumps. We jumped the 3rd to last. We got the water jump coming up, and I moved into 2nd place. And Tim Bro was one of my biggest competitors. He was a great runner. He was in front of me. We come out of the water jump, and Tony Familetti is right on my tail here, and he's a great runner. Both of them made an Olympic team, ultimately. But Tim, over the last water jump, he nicks his toe. He's about 10 yards in front of me. He nicks his toe. He stumbles down onto the track, and I just remember being so surprised because I'm sitting there jumping over the barrier, looking at him down on the track as I'm passing him. And then Tony's right on my right side here. And so I just look up, and all I see is straight track. I see the finish line tape across the finish line, and the crowd is just going nuts because Tim's on the ground, and here I am sprinting into the finish. And I crossed the line and just threw my hands up in the air, and it was one of those feelings that you just can't even describe.
The thing that sticks out in my mind about Tom Chorny is that he was someone who really found his niche. He found his event. There were a lot of great track and field athletes that I covered that maybe never really found the perfect event for themselves. But for Tom, the steeplechase was like a match made in heaven. And to see him, take it all the way to being a U.S. champion, that was really one of the great memories in my sports writing career.
Being ranked 32nd in the world, it's like I said, it's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous just to think about that. And to be able to have brushed shoulders with all of these Olympians has been, even just 3 weeks ago, I was down in Daytona for the USA Track and Field annual meeting, and just to hang out with these guys that just came back from London a couple months ago, it's just amazing, and a lot of them are my friends. It's exciting.
Next up, Tom Chorny. Tom Chorny was a 4-time state champion for the Trojans in track and cross country. He went on to be a 3-time All-American at Indiana University, where he won in the prestigious Penn relays in 1999. After graduation, he won the U.S. national title in the 3,000-meter steeplechase and earned a berth in the World Championships in 2001. He finished 8th in the Goodwill Games that year, and 2 years later earned 4th in the Pan-Am Games. He has competed in 8 countries on 3 continents and was ranked as high as 32nd in the world in steeplechase. His personal best times, indoor mile, 4 minutes, 7 seconds. How many of us wish we could do that, right? Matt is now working and, like another Fruitport alum, giving back. He's an assistant distance coach at IU and is manager of a REIT athletic in Bloomington, Indiana. Tom was also speaking to SALT, the student athlete leadership team, giving back to his community yesterday and speaking with young athletes in Fruitport. Please welcome Tom Chorny.
Thank you. I'm so nervous that they're feeling my heartbeat over there next to me, so hopefully I'll get this right. Thank you very much. This means a lot to me for sure, because Mike Teeter mentioned the other day during our panel discussion, or maybe just talking together, that distance running can be a very lonely sport. When I think about some of the best workouts that I've ever done, and all the hard work that I've put in, some of the best that I've ever done have been on my own. I can remember 2 feet deep of snow out at Hoffmaster once. I picked out a really nice hill before any of the skiers had gotten out there, and I did 10 hill repeats up and down that took about 2 minutes to get to the top, and I'd jog right back down. And by the time I was done with that workout, the deer had kind of gathered around and were watching me like, what the heck's this crazy kid doing? It was one of these things where I worked so hard that I got to the end of the 10th one, and I just kind of looked around and I'm like, what the heck am I doing? But it just felt so exhilarating. I've had tons of workouts like that where I'm on my own, working hard for the goals that I set for myself. And it's interesting just to think back on all this stuff that I've done in my career. When I won the U.S. Championship in 2001, some of the exciting things about being part of the sport that doesn't really pay a lot. I mean, when I signed with Nike, I signed for a $4,000 contract for the year with $2,000 to pay my travel expenses. And 2 years into that contract, I win the U.S. Championship, and I'm not really shy about much of that race. Won me about $12,600. So, it was kind of a nice payday for 8 minutes and 22 seconds worth of work. But, it wasn't just that 8 minutes. It was the years, even the years at Fruitport, that led up to having even the mentality to go out and win a race like that. So it was a great time. I've had some amazing highs and some amazing lows. With that race, I qualified for the World Championship team and represented the USA on my first senior level USA team. Had that been the Olympic year, I would have been the first guy on the Olympic team. But it was 1 year too late for the 2000 Olympics in Sydney. And I competed at the Olympic trials in 2004, which unfortunately I was going into it with an injury. So, one of my ultimate goals was always to be in the Olympics. And, I don't want to say that it's completely over yet, but at my age, I'm getting up there a little bit. And who knows if I'll have it again or not. But if I win the U.S. Championship, I signed with an agent who was from Austria. His name was Harold Edlisberger. Came from a really good recommendation from my current college coach and another college coach from Butler University, who he was really good friends with. But I was nervous about it because I had never traveled overseas, so we had expedited my passport. I get over there to Nice was my first race, and we had set up a series of races. At Nice, it was the Nikaya, it was on the Grand Prix circuit, and I'm racing against a bunch of Kenyans and Ethiopians and other Europeans. And, well, actually they were all from Africa. I looked down the line, and I was the only white guy on the line. A little nerve-wracking. When I look back at that start list today, there was a silver medalist on there, there's a gold medalist, 3 guys that had at one point held the world record in the steeplechase. Too bad we don't have the video. Hopefully you would see what the steeplechase is. If you don't know, it's a 3,000 meter race with hurdles. There's barriers, 5 barriers every lap on the track. One of them has a water pit. So it's like the horse steeplechase, or just without the horse. So anyways, I'm at the hotel in Nice. My first time over there, I know a little bit of French. My mom, French teacher, and I'd taken some French. the agent calls me. I have not met him yet. I haven't even signed with him yet he's the one getting me into these races. So talk about a nervous situation for a 25-year-old kid, 24-year-old kid. And he says, come up to the top of the hotel. And we're on the La Côte d'Azur, right, on the Mediterranean. And I go to the top of this hotel. And you know, in France, they're a little bit more risque. He represents another couple athletes. And one of them was from Poland, I believe. And we're at the pool on top of this hotel. And he's sitting there, and he's a relatively big guy. He's sitting there in his Speedo. And next to him is his shot putter girl. Well, imagine Mike Teeter when he gets up here in a wig. And that's, this girl is sitting there topless, sunbathing, hair coming out of her armpits. You know, it's a culture I wasn't really used to. And so I'm already nervous, and now I've got to, talk to my agent who's sitting there in a Speedo, and he's like, oh, come on over, let's sit at this table. And he basically puts down in front of me the contract to read over and to sign. And I hadn't completely decided I wanted to for sure sign with him. I wanted to, this is a big, important decision. The loneliness goes beyond just doing the workouts, and that was my point is, I did a lot of this on my own. I was so nervous on this trip. I had 3 steeplechases in 9 days, so I went to Oslo from there, and then I went to Stockholm and raced in the old Olympic Stadium. And my gut at the time was just wrenching, kind of like it is now. But I was so nervous. I had this, GERD stuff. It was just really sharp pain here, and I could not sleep before another one of my biggest races of my life. And I got up from this. I was on the 30th floor in one of the nicest hotels in Oslo, and I'm wandering around the streets at about 4 a.m. trying to find a 7-Eleven or something like that to just get some Alka-Seltzer, something to try to smooth things over. I had a guy come up to me, a little raggedy, dirty pants, looks like he had just woken up from an alley, and he spoke broken English, and he offered me some drug that would make me feel good. I refused, I didn't take it, but I tried to get some directions to a local store, and ultimately nothing was open. But I wandered around town at 4 in the morning in Oslo for a couple hours, and it just sums up a lot of the things that I've gone through. Ultimately, I had some good races there, won some money, and competed in some amazing races. But the point of that is, and I said this yesterday at the panel, my parents had both moved to different houses when I went off to college, and so when I came home, those homes didn't necessarily feel like home to me anymore. But when I'm driving around the streets in Fruitport and in Muskegon, Grand Haven, this is home. That's when I feel at home. I know these roads, I know the air, I know the smell of Lake Michigan, and I know the feel of the sand and the running out in the dunes. And I've taken all of you with me. My teachers and my coaches that are out here, and friends, and my family. Everything that I've ever done with my career has been a little bit of a part of wanting to make you guys proud. And this is a great confirmation to receive this honor. And I've always taken you with me. I will continue to do that to try to make Fruitport proud of what I can do. And if I can give back, then I'm going to come up with ways to do that. Loneliness or not, I'll always be a Fruitport Trojan. So thank you very much.